UK Motor Talk.
Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Mike.
I'm Jim. Good evening. Hope you're well.
I'm Dave. How is everyone? All right?
As well as all things considered can be, really, I suppose. 2022, isn't it? It's just where 2021 left off, really, isn't it? But there we are. But hey, at least 2022, it's 22, so that matches the number on our track car. So there's something.
It
it's
does.
Good.
And this is a world of cheese and wine, and so we crack on. Although we have got some problems, haven't we? Or rather, you and I have got some problems. And that is largely just getting cars in. And I'm saying from a motor industry perspective here, where 2021 left off, 2022 is carried on in that we are being set targets to sell cars. And unfortunately, cars are not landing through the doors still because of pesky little semiconductors.
Yeah, we seem to have had a target to sell double the number of cars we actually have or will have this month, which is,
or will build.
Even by, sketchy large company mathematics where 2 quarters never equal a half and 2 halves never equal a whole. It's pushing it. I think they're saying every car that we have, we need to sell it twice, which is, we certainly could do in terms of used cars, a number of used cars that we sell, and then somebody phones up a day later and says, oh, I'd have bought that, and somebody else phones up a day later and says, oh, I'd have bought that. It's the demand is certainly still there, but the supply most certainly isn't. I think we were hoping the situation would ease as 2021 progressed and 2022 began, but I'm not quite sure that's the case, and I'm not holding out a lot of hope for this year, to be honest. Although I think other factors and dictating factors, just as plenty of airlines are running empty flights because they need to keep their landing slots open at certain airports. Our friends in the EU setting CO2 targets for manufacturers seems to be having an effect, as it's almost impossible to get anything out of a major manufacturer that produces a lump of CO2. So we're here with some hard-hitting, useful consumer advice, as always, on UK Motor Talk, that if you are looking to order a brand new car, pick something with lower CO2. I mean, it's the way things have been pushed with a ban on internal combustion engines and road tax brackets and, cheaper running costs on electric cars, if you can ignore the high purchase price. But, of course, all the manufacturers get set a CO2 limit every year, and if the average of all their cars added together goes over the limit that they get set, then they get fined an insane amount. I think it's 80-something euros per gram per kilometre per car, isn't it? So if your average fleet is 1 gram over, and you sell 500,000 cars just in Britain alone, it suddenly becomes a very big issue. But of course the fine is Europe-wide, so I'm not sure off the top of my head how many cars Ford, VW, Renault, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, etc. register across the whole of Europe. I'd be guessing it's quite a lot, and I'd be guessing that 80 euros times even 1 by quite a lot is too much money for them to consider. So, I think we're seeing that if you order something fully electric or with hybrid, whether it's plug-in, full hybrid or mild hybrid technology, you get that a little bit quicker. Anything diesel is virtually impossible to get a hold of. I mean, Rangers, we're seeing, lead times of over a year at the moment, which for a pickup truck is absolutely crazy.
It is. I mean, you have to bear in mind the market's quite an interesting one for that at the moment, because you can't buy a Nissan, whatever it is, because they just stopped making them. The same for the Mercedes.
Well,
you can't buy Mitsubishi. Yes, because Mitsubishi don't exist anymore. So there aren't a lot in the way of pickup trucks available. So it kind of makes sense that it was a popular truck anyway, multi-award winning truck, and so people going for that, really, whether they wanted to because they thought it was a good truck, or whether it's because it's the only real option at the moment, I don't know. But this is definitely the case for almost every manufacturer. Stuff's hard to come by. I think the Korean manufacturers seem to be recovering a bit quicker from this, actually, if I'm completely honest. But the knock-on effect is cars that are nearly new, which were usually relatively plentiful. The cars that are changed after a couple of years, 3 years, stuff that's come off of business and rental fleets, all that kind of stuff. It just isn't appearing. So there's not so much used stuff. So used stuff is more expensive to buy because new stuff isn't available. So there is still a bit of a knock-on effect. The industry hasn't quite recovered yet. it's going to take a little while before it does. And this is a storm of many different facets, really. It's partly of automotive manufacturers' own making, that they stopped making the cars, so they stopped buying the chips. The manufacturers of the chips then found other people to sell the chips to, and they go into lots of things like iPads and phones and bits and pieces. And I'd say this all briefly because I'm sure we've covered this before, but a combination of COVID, a massive fire in one of the huge semiconductor plants, has basically meant it's very hard to get these bits. And these little chips do really odd but integral functions on the car now. So things like the reversing cameras or sensors, sat nav, things that are extras, admittedly, but certainly these days, things that you can't live without.
It's even things like one-touch electric windows, the thing that fascinated people and was a selling point of the mid-range model over the base model going back, 15, 20 years. The fact that you could just press the button once and your windows went all the way up or all the way down. Most cars built in 2022 won't do that because that uses a semiconductor up. So you multiply that out and actually, if we don't put that in all the cars, then we can build 4 more cars per month or week or whatever it is. So we'll do that instead. It just seems very odd having to hold your finger on the button now for to wind your window up. Seems like too much effort, to be honest, but maybe that's how spoiled we become.
It's other things as well, isn't it? The sort of the more luxury, higher end audio packages, the Harman Kardons, and I know Bang & Olufsen, particularly for I think Mini, it's not an option you can tick at the moment because it needs more chips to make it sound better, and you can't order that. It's strange times we're living in, but the one-touch window thing, the horror.
Go back to manual wind windows. It's the only solution.
Well, we've got them in the back of the Fiesta.
Let's all go back to Mark 1 and Mark 2 versions of absolutely everything. We said, I think, in the last podcast, we were all lusting after Mark 1, Mark 2 Golfs and Fiat Unos and things like that. I'm sure there must be some sort of loophole in the regulations where actually if you're putting a heritage model back into production, you can get away with it. So, should we get on the phone to VW and say, if you wouldn't mind just firing up production of Mark 1 and Mark 2 Golfs, because how many semiconductors will those use? 1?
You must love the tooling kicking around somewhere in Wolfsburg, haven't you? Just
they could make millions of them. Can you imagine it tomorrow if VW said, actually, to get around all the cack that's going on in the world, may we introduce the Mark 1 Golf GTI, 16 valve? There you are. Get on with it.
The waiting list would extend
is an
miles.
Option. But don't worry, because we've already built 100,000 of them. They'd just fly off the shelves, wouldn't they? That'd be brilliant. I'd buy one.
I'd have one.
Yeah,
there we are. So there we are. We've early on in only our second podcast of the year. We've fixed 2022. So if anyone is from VW is listening, we'll only take a modest commission of a Mark 1 and Mark 2 Golf each. Thank you very much.
Well, it's goodbye from me. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Good night.
I have to admit, I would be on board for Mark 1 Golf, but it would never fly in terms of the regulations and safety and emissions and everything else, particularly now everything has to be hybrid. And I don't think there's space for a battery pack on that. But the WRC starts again this week in Monte Carlo. And of course, everything's starting to become hybrid as well. So Graham, actually back at a noisy Festival of Speed in 21, spoke to Tim Jackson, who's the senior engineer at M Sport, Mark Rushbrook, who's the global head of performance now, and Malcolm Wilson from legendary M Sport, about what's coming to WRC.
2022 is going to see some fairly dramatic changes in the World Rally Championship regulations as they enter the hybrid era. And Ford and M Sport are very keen to make good progress with the new car. It's based upon the Puma, although it's a heavily modified version thereof. I asked Tim Jackson, senior engineer at M Sport, how their testing was going.
It's our first time out in a kind of a public setting for the car, so this is one of our test cars that we've been using. Feedback from the testing on this brand new car has been really good as well. So yeah, testing in general is going good, and here's going well too. It's a dual powered, so the internal combustion engine in the car is carried over from the current WRC cars that you see. A lot of that was for cost saving. So whilst they're not the cheapest engine in the world, if you imagine that everyone's got to develop a whole new engine for the category, it's those development costs that you save by carrying over the same engine. So the internal combustion engine is the same. We've then got a hybrid unit in the car, which is the same for all the competitors. It adds a maximum of 100 kilowatts. and it's kind of done as a boost on top of the internal combustion engine. So obviously when you're kind of driving part throttle wise, they're mixing between the two, but when you're full throttle you'll have full output from the internal combustion engine, and then the opportunity to have full output from that 100 kilowatts too.
So in that respect it pretty much mirrors an F1 car in its sort of power delivery.
Yeah, exactly, and it's getting a blend of the power between the internal combustion engine and the hybrid, where you improve the drivability and can make all the performance gains. So yeah, quite similar.
I'm guessing this is still so very experimental. You're not going to be going for times up the hill. You're just letting it stretch its legs.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, of course we hope that it's a fast car, but equally it's the only one of this category here. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to show it to the public. Give a stretch of the legs and gain a little bit of feedback too.
I mean, for rally cars, the aerodynamics on these cars are really quite extraordinary now, just in the last couple of years.
Yeah, from the 2017 regulations, the FIA kind of took a bit of a step to give us some more freedom on the aerodynamics, which is great for performance, obviously, but it also adds to the visual aspect of the car, which I think kind of works from the public perception too. This is the regulations for these cars, which will be first out in 2022, is quite similar to the current WRC cars, with an aim of making some of it a little bit cheaper. So where we've got some of the extreme dive planes and things on the car, you won't see those in the 2022 Evolution, but obviously we do work to try and get the aerodynamic performance to be as close to that level as we can.
Mark Rushbrook, Global Head of Ford Performance.
Yeah, a lot about what we do with Ford Performance Motorsports is about relevance of what we sell in the showroom, and our customers drive on the street, and we need to be racing and competing in that same area. So we want to win races and championships that matter. We want to have the innovation and technical learning to go with that as well, the people development, and then the marketing element of it as well. So we have been trying for knowing about the electrification that we have coming on all of our road cars with mild hybrids, plug-in hybrids, full electric vehicles. We've wanted to compete somewhere with electrification. And looking at the different series that existed with hybrid or full electric and many that are still coming, we were really happy with what the FIA and WRC as the promoter put together as the new car for 2022. And then, as we always have partnered with M Sport in the rally world, you can't go racing or competing anywhere without great partners, great people. So obviously wanted to continue the relationship with M Sport, and the opportunity here to do a new car with new rules. Ford had influence with a technical working group to influence the new rules, to give us the opportunity to compete with a Puma competitively. And to compete with hybrid competitively, so that we can have the marketing story for the Puma, and we can have the relevancy of the hybrid and technical learning, genuine technical learning that we'll get with that. And then obviously bringing in technical resources where we can to complement what Rich and Malcolm have. They're great at developing new cars. They've shown that time and time again. So we're excited about the development of this new car and being able to contribute where we can with our company resources to make it a great winning car.
Malcolm Wilson, owner of M Sport.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here talking about this without the support of Ford, and that's for sure. And of course, it's the first time in the history of WRC that we're moving away from a production-based body shell. So it's complete lot of work again with the FIA and all the teams in trying to get the safety side of it up to spec. So I think there's been there'll be a big improvement in the safety side of the car as well. It's the first time we've done a construction like this, but I'm really pleased with everything, the way that the guys have done that side. And then of course it's the first time for us for hybrid as well. So pleased to say that we've been running the car now for roughly 3 months, I think, since we first rolled the car out. I have to say testing's gone really, really well. Very, very happy with progress made so far. And it's interesting that all the drivers that have driven the car, then they're very happy also. They've got a great feeling about the chassis of the car, but also the benefit of the hybrid as well, the extra boost. So they're all very happy as well. So at the moment we can't wait for Monte Carlo to start, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of discussion and debate about, and probably the messaging about the hybrid and how we were going to utilise it within Championship.
Rich Milliner, team principal of M Sport.
It was maybe a little bit mixed or muddied, but for anyone who isn't up to speed, the hybrid will be predominantly used during the stages in short bursts, and then a braking effort will regen that burst and you will use it throughout the stage, and effectively your total battery voltage will drop over the course of the stage, and then the idea is the road section will recharge again. We were obviously a little unsure of what it was going to be like, but every driver that's driven it is kind of now wanting it in this car that we currently have this year, so that's always a positive if they're looking for extra. And when you think about it, it's effectively 100 horsepower when you're getting another 100 horsepower, where at the moment you're missing it. So if you're not traction limited, then it really is a big fill-in for what you've got at the moment. So it will be interesting to see how the drivers react. I think it will be a slightly different driving style. You're going to have to think a little bit about using your boost, because if you go onto the brakes in the middle of one of your boosts, you will effectively lose it until you regen it again. So somebody who can utilise the whole boost, especially when you're looking for, let's say you're going into a long straight with a top speed that's going to, if you need that top speed for like 800 metres straight, for example, if you've lost it previously because you braked even lightly compared to someone else who's managed to carry the speed through and not got rid of the boost, it's going to be an advantage there. So I think we're going to learn a lot as we go along. But then also, I actually saw the car drive in EV mode for the first time here on Thursday morning, and it instantly kind of resonated of some really fantastic opportunities we're going to have to show the hybrid element of it. And I think service parks or regroups within towns and cities are going to be perfect places to show that it's a hybrid vehicle as well. And there's a lot we're going to have to work on as a championship to get the most from it. But I think the relevance of the technology we're putting in is sensible. It's a sensible step for rally, because everyone knows how difficult it is to change rally, and we don't want to lose the noise, we don't want to lose the atmosphere, and we're reflecting the cars that are currently out there. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us, and it's now the responsibility of the teams and the promoter to push that forward as best we can.
Oh, fascinating stuff. Yeah, the World Rally Championships are evolving, and with new World Rally cars, there come new cars on the roads, albeit perhaps restricted in their flow because of the chip shortage and the difficulties in getting cars into showrooms. The one that I think really is going to interest me this year isn't particularly exotic, but it's as cute as you like, and it's the new Citroen Amy, the new little electric city car. That. Oh God, I love that thing. I mean, it's only got 8 horsepower from its motor. It's 43 miles range. It's 2.5 meters long, and it's as cute as you like. I'd be a buyer of one of those if I only had to do 43 miles a day. Definitely.
Well, I think with the highway code regulations that we had a natter about last week, is this a separate category on its own? Is it pedestrians,
it's a quadricycle,
horse riders, cyclists, the Citroen Amy, and then cars? So actually, does it give you more right of way at a junction?
I think it's got 4 wheels, so as far as they're concerned, it's a car.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
It's a quadricycle for the purposes that, like the Mark 1 Golf, if they reproduced it, wouldn't it doesn't have to fit in any particular safety category, I think. So it doesn't have airbags and bits and pieces as far as I know. It's the same both ends, actually. It's got the front on the back are both exactly the same. But I think it's kind of brilliant. The doors open opposite each other, so on the passenger side it opens backwards, driver's side opens forward, or the other way around, I can never remember which. And it's got lots of little features that are inspired by the 2CV. It's just a very clever bit of design. And they're even doing a van version of it. I don't know if you've seen this, where you lose the passenger seat and it has like a storage box on the sides. If you're a courier, you can squash a million parcels into that and throw them at people through the open doors. It's just a cracking idea. I think it's very cool. I'm not sure it necessarily works in our sort of suburban environment, but I think if you're in a city in London, probably if you're in the right bits of Surrey as well, it would work quite well.
Yeah, as long as you haven't got to go too far and range anxiety isn't part of your makeup, I think you'll be happy as Larry. They're great little things. And you're saying about the doors are that way so that they can use the same door. And so it mounts on the car front and back so that they don't have to make 2, and so it's cheaper to make. I think little things like that are designed genius. And that's exactly as it should be. Pared down, simple transport, but it's fun with it. And that's all you can ask, I think. That's the perfect car, perfect job.
See, I think from a design or a logistics point of view as well, that if you apply that philosophy across the whole car, how many components does that cut out of the supply chain? How much does that increase production ease by making the same point? I mean, I remember having a conversation with our parts department over a set of floor mats for my dad's Fiesta, and you needed a chassis number to get the right set of floor mats. And you think, it's a set of mats, does it matter? But there were a couple of changes that Ford made to the fixings, the way the mats were secured down, and then there were a couple of other little changes to the pedal box or the floor pan or whatever it was that basically meant, yes, you needed a chassis number, otherwise you got the wrong set of mats, because there were 4 different mats available depending on when the car was produced. And you scale that up across however many model lines you make, however many cars you make, and it's very easy to remember if it happened last week. Oh yeah, they've changed the fixings from a circular peg, push it down to an old-fashioned oval, rotate the thing. You can remember that last week, but when you have to go back 15 years, how do you remember it? But actually to say, can I have a door for Miami? Yes. There you go. That's it. You don't even need to remember which side it is. It just cuts everything down. But yeah, why have different things for different sides? Why not, indeed?
I will completely admit at this point, though, I was looking at one of these and suddenly thought it reminded me of something. I couldn't figure out what it was for the life of me until I walked past a building site and saw a grey portable toilet. And I looked at the plastic, then thought of the Amy, then looked at the toilet and then thought, oh yes. And that is basically what they're like. It's a bit like someone's taken the top and bottom off a Portaloo and put a windscreen in it and put the doors on it.
You can paint it yourself. It doesn't matter. I mean, the one on the website, it's got bright orange wheels, but you could the door panels are so cheap. You'd have to go at painting yourself, and if you cocked it up, it would cost you about £7.82 to change all the bodywork on it. But
yeah,
it reminds me. It's like having a radio controlled car back in the day, isn't it? I don't like the look of it. I'll buy a new body shell and I'll try and paint it. And if it looks cack, it doesn't matter. I'll throw it away and buy another body shell. They're only £4. It's that kind of thing.
It's almost like a full grown car, well, half full grown car version of the Cozy Coupe. I tell you what this is. It's not quite a full size car. In the same way that when we went out in the Fist last time, we went with someone that we know through work. We'd never actually met. So Jim said to him, how tall are you? Because I'm 6'2", whatever you said you were, and Gates is just under 6 foot.
You are just under 6 foot.
From what distance? I'm 5'8". That's a fair
just
bit
under
6
It's
foot.
all relative, isn't it? In the grand scheme of things, you are just under 6 foot. I mean, Mount Kilimanjaro is 20,000 feet tall. So if you compare you next to Mount Kilimanjaro to scale, then yeah, you're just under 6 foot. So I was trying to do you a favour there. Come on.
So the Amy is the 5'8" of a full size car, is what it is. It is the sort of grown up version of a Cozy Coupe with the plastic panels you can just unbolt and bolt another one on, in the same sort of way you could with the original smart car, but just better.
Very true. Well, I mean, they're missing a trick there. There must be some marketing people sitting there going, hang on a minute, it looks like a Cozy Coupe. We could get together with the people that make Cozy Coupe, license body parts, and then you could drive the real thing. How cool would that be? I would.
That would be
absolutely.
Awesome. I like the idea that you could do your proper own customization of it. So you could do if you wanted to have, brushed artwork, whatever else on there, you could do it, or you could buy the wraps and put them on there. Or if you wanted to, you could do like a scaled down Back to the Future DeLorean type thing, or whatever. So do an Ecto 1 or something, just to make it that bit different. I reckon it would work, and I think it would have a cult following. I really do.
If you want to go to the other end of the scale from the Citroen Amy, at the very other end of the scale, we've got the new Range Rover. That's popping up this year, which if you were to cast a casual glance over it, you'd think, hang on a minute, all they've done is just rebadge it and sort of give it a little bit of a nip and tuck. But apparently it is brand new. And the way that you can tell it's the brand new one is if you go around the back, it's got some very controversial lights, or lack of lights.
I quite like that.
Yeah, but I don't mind it. It's very minimal Very,
It
very
is.
minimal. There are no big LED chunks stuck on the back. There are two black vertical strips on either side of the back of the car that light up like a Christmas tree whenever you put the indicators on or the brakes or whatever else. But yeah, they've really cleaned up the back, and it's dividing opinion, I believe.
Well, you have to stick with me on this, but I think that the Range Rover is almost becoming more and more Art Deco. Do you know what I mean? But if you go into like a really beautiful Art Deco building, something like a pier or something similar, Worthing Pier, for example, has a beautiful Art Deco dance hall at the end, which has been a cafe, and they've been redoing all kinds of bits and pieces. There's something about the way that they've designed it, the lights and the interior, which has a sort of very 30s ocean liner vibe about it, I think. They've managed to build the grandness into the Range Rover by making it like a cruise liner. Does anyone else see what I mean by this? I agree, it hasn't departed too much.
They've streamlined it.
Yeah, and do you remember those quite epic 30s posters?
Thrusting steam engines that were all faired in and sort of big. Yes, I know
Yes.
exactly what you mean. Everything looked elegant and
It does.
pared down. That was the whole point.
It's the Mallard. Yeah, I think they've done a really good job of doing it, and they've got a reasonable range again now, where they've got the Defender, which admittedly is nothing like the old one. And I'm still not sure I'd want to go around wanging it off trees and things in the same way that the old Defenders used to do, because I think it's a bit too pretty. I really like it. But it is a completely opposite end of the scale in terms of its design from the Range Rover. And I think they've done a very good job of having capable vehicles, relatively capable vehicles, of course. They have admitted they have some issues with reliability. I'm sure they've rectified all of those. But you've got a very capable vehicle which is designed to be able to be used for driving around Chelsea or towing 3.5 tons across a field or whatever. And then you've got a beautiful cruising machine which will also pull stuff across a field if you need to. I think they've done a very good job of making very different models which are very capable in environments opposite to what you think they should be capable in. So on the road, on a field, vice versa. I think they've done a really good job of it, is what I'm trying to say, in a very long-winded way.
Yeah, no matter what you want it for, it will go pretty much anywhere you could imagine it going. And the new Range Rover now will do it with 7 people. It's the first Range Rover that has a third row of seats. So if you specify the long wheelbase version, you can carry the entire family or all your servants, more likely, in the back of the thing. And that's the latest USP from the new Rangey. It's not going to be cheap. The starting price starts from, so your base version, if such a thing exists in Range Rover world, £94,000, which is about $120,000 for our American chums. And what that equates to in other people's currency, I'm afraid I can't tell you, but they're the two I work in, and it's not cheap.
No, it's not. But it's about time they made that a 7-seater. Because, to be completely honest, if I was going to choose something from the range, I probably would have always gone for a Disco for that reason. Because the Discovery, it has that ability to have, and it's a decent size 7-seater as well. The back seats, you can fit an adult in the back, or at least an adult that's just under 6 foot like me, into the back seats with no real issue. Very versatile, still incredibly comfortable to drive. And I was always amazed that the Range Rover didn't do that. There are things that it should do. I think carrying 7 people is one of them, and having a split level tailgate so you can sit on the back once you've been off shooting clays or whatever it is you've been doing in your Range Rover. You also need those things are really important to have in a Range Rover. To me, anyway, I think it makes a lot of sense to have those 7 seats, and I think it's the way that the world's going. If people buy SUVs, people don't buy people carriers and bits and pieces anymore. When they buy a bigger SUV or proper 4x4 as the Range is, then you want to be able to have that extra carrying capacity, I think. Admittedly, this isn't a car for the masses, but damn cool nevertheless.
I imagine as well, part of it, as well as the servants, because it's not going to be your family. Why would you want to travel with your family when you've got all that amount of money? It's probably for your personal protection detail nowadays, isn't it?
Yes, makes sense. I just had a sudden thought then. You imagine you suddenly need your personal protection detail as they scrabble to get out of those back seats by lowering the seat down in front, climbing over. Mind the leather as they get out through the side whilst withdrawing their pistol. I can't imagine that being clunky at all, but would be brilliant.
I imagine certain modifications will be made to the versions that are carrying people who are worthy of a personal protection detail, and that will have been well and truly taken into account way down the line.
I should think so. We ended up chatting to a close protection officer who was looking after the Queen, who had some special Land Rovers some time ago. And yeah, I think they were Not necessarily entirely standard in all regards.
No, they never are.
But cool, nevertheless.
Oh no, they're brilliant. They're brilliant things. And had I the money, I think it's probably one of the first things. If I did have a sizable lottery win, it would have to be a Range Rover of some sort, because it's the ultimate do anything car, really, isn't it? It's luxury. It'll go anywhere. It'll carry anything. You can sit in the back and look at the plebs, shoot things from it, all of that, and do it in style. And what's not to like, apart from the bill?
Yeah. And the occasional breakdown, potentially. I did wonder. I remember looking at them thinking, why would anyone want one of these things just to cruise around on the road in? But they are absolutely excellent for cruising around in. They really are very, very good. Very
thing.
comfortable. Yeah. Awesome bits of kit. Anyway, what else is new this year?
You can take your pick. I mean, a couple of them have been quite interesting. Talking of SUVs, as we were, I mean, there's not really a huge amount of information about this yet, but the Ferrari Purosangue, or I can't pronounce it, basically pure blood, I think it means in Italian, is their much vaunted SUV. They've had to jump on the bandwagon because they know it's going to sell as many as they can make. It may have a V6, a V8 or a V12, no one's telling yet, but it's likely to have a hybrid if it's a V6 and a V8. That's about all we know. They've been seen prototypes driving around with various disguises on in various parts of Maranello and everywhere else. But it will be very interesting to see what that comes out like. I imagine it'll probably look like the Stelvio on steroids, but it'll have presence. I think of that we can be fairly certain.
We've spoken about this at length before, and there's definitely a not the Ferrari as such, but sort of fast SUVs, and certainly there's an argument for the SUV from a family point of view. Are these going to be bought by people who already have a Ferrari and then need something to move their family around in? Probably, and some very well-heeled builders maybe from parts of Soho or something. Who knows? If it means that producing these kind of things results in them being able to continue making sports cars, supercars, whatever, I'm kind of okay with that, to be completely honest. Because, frankly, if you don't like it, you don't have to buy one, do you?
No. I mean, they do say it's diluting the breed somewhat, but as you say, if anything, it's helping the breed survive. And if that's the case, then, yeah, let them do it. I mean, they're probably pretty garish. They're a bit unseemly, but, Bentley Bentayga. But there you go.
Yes,
what can you do? It is what it is.
The flip side of that is, I don't know, for those that own a Ferrari as a weekend car, as a few people that we know own a Ferrari or several Ferraris, and it's just their plaything. But if they're out and about with a family or the wife wants something, it's like, well, actually, if somebody said, okay, you've got a choice of a Ferrari or a Kia, and any further clarification? No, well, actually, you don't need any clarification, do you? Do you want a Ferrari or a Kia? Doesn't matter what Ferrari it is, and it doesn't matter what Kia it is, you want a Ferrari. So actually, if you have to drive an SUV, if you need or want to drive an SUV, then surely a Ferrari is the best SUV to have, isn't it? Or an Aston Martin or a Bentley or whatever takes your fancy. So it's, I don't know. They're obviously not the last word in driving dynamics or a pure automotive vehicle, but it's, as you say, it's the way of the world these days, isn't it? And if it allows a few more pennies in the coffers, and so they can go off and research and design LaFerraris, and are we going to see a McLaren SUV anytime soon? Probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against it.
We're going to have to, aren't we? Bearing in mind we said a few years ago, no, you'll never see a Ferrari SUV, whereas now we will see one, then we're going to see a McLaren SUV, aren't we? But actually, if the McLaren SUV means, oh yeah, we've done the McLaren SUV, but also we've done a 739 4829 Longtail GT Speedtail, whatever they call the latest one, and it's got 1 million T horsepower, then actually, is one a reasonable trade-off for the other? Yeah, I think it probably is, isn't it?
Yeah. We've also proved you can't really have a four-seater fast sports car that does the business, looks the business, and is practical in the way that an SUV can be.
Still not as good as an estate car, though. Let's be totally honest. Yeah, I mean,
it isn't.
An Audi RS6, is there any more car that anyone needs to do anything ever? No, there isn't, because it could tow your track car to the Nürburgring, and actually if your track car blows up, then sod it, you just take the RS6 round the Nürburgring, and you can sleep in the back of it, and you can fit your entire family in the back of it. So why, I'd be far happier if Ferrari came out with a fast estate. If they reinvented the bread van, actually, I think that would be far better.
Well, I mean, I guess what I mean is, if you think of the last 4-door Aston Martin before the DBX, which does all the bits and pieces, it does the road stuff and off-road and all the rest of it, but you can chuck a dog in the boot, or a couple of dogs in the boot, or some suitcase in the boot. The Rapide is probably the closest thing to a family car they made before.
Probably want to put the
Very
dogs in
pretty.
the suitcases so you don't get dog fur in the back of your Aston Martin. But yeah.
And there's a reasonable amount of space in there. It's 2 seats in the back, 2 seats in the front. But to get into the back, if you're a full-grown adult, there's not a lot of space for your legs. It's not anywhere near as practical as an SUV is or an estate would be. But I can't really imagine them making an Aston Martin estate that isn't an aftermarket shooting brake, for example. And then that's going to be a 2-door shooting brake rather than anything else, I think. So there's an argument for it, I think, in terms of it being a useful car as well as just being a cynical means of making money. I can see the reason why they do it. Does it dilute the brand? I think it's just a necessary evil. If you're into your SUVs or you want something to cart your family around, then fantastic. You've got what is undoubtedly going to be an incredible car for one of them. Would I buy one? Probably not if I had the money. I just don't think I'd see the point. I probably would buy something like an RS6, because I think an RS6 is probably all you need in terms of family cars. A big boot, reasonable space inside, all the pace you could ever want in an estate body makes a lot of sense for me. But then I guess I probably don't want or don't need the prestige of rocking up somewhere in a Ferrari SUV. To me, something like the Bentayga or whatever it's just a bit too ostentatious. It's just not my thing. Maybe that's just me.
No, you're not alone. It sends the wrong messages. It's a bit, I don't know, a bit gaudy, a bit trying too hard for my liking. No, it's not really my cup of tea, but enough people are buying them, and if it lets them, as you say, as we've said many times, if it lets them carry on making the things that the rest of us want them to make, so be it. And finally, folks, good news. The Aura Cat from Greatwall is heading our way in the first quarter of 2022. Unbridled enthusiasm starts now. I know you were very excited about this, Mike, so
I
your
am.
dreams are coming true. When do you think we'll see the first one?
I like the fact it's called the Good Cat in different countries as well, different markets. Like, what was it? I'm sure it was a Bruce Willis character. Was it Lucky Number 7 or something? Can't remember. Anyway, I like the fact that it was a Good Cat. I think it's quite cute looking. It's got bits of Porsche, it's got bits of Beetle in, bits of Mini in it. I think I would drive that. I honestly would. I think that's a cool looking little car.
It's very cute. Very cute. Yes, it's supposed to start hitting our roads, supply chain notwithstanding, any time now. And it starts at 25 grand, which isn't actually too bad for one of these things, is it?
You'd easily spend that on a Mini, wouldn't you? 25 grand.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same size, apparently, as the Volkswagen ID3, but it's about 5 grand cheaper. They start at about 30, so, it's not too bad.
It's as big as that, is it?
Yeah, apparently so. It's about 4 metres long and about just under 2 wide, so it's not exactly huge. It's fairly easily parked, I should imagine. It's not bad. 170 horsepower.
In my mind, looking at the car, it looks a bit like it should be around about the size of a 5-door Mini, weirdly proportioned as they are. To think that it's as big as that seems really, really quite big.
That's quite good design, though, because it looks smaller than it actually is. That's always a winner for me. You don't want something that's doing... I mean, like you say, the 5-door Mini just looks... Ugh, it's not good. You want something
well
that...
out of proportion. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's like what's the Kia? It's like the EV6. That's another one. It has the sizing and shape of something that looks like it should be a small hatchback. When you see it, it's actually quite a big car. It's quite a good trick actually, and I think that's I'm quite taken by that thing. I like the proportions, but the Aura Cat, for the same reasons you like it, I like it. It's got a few cues from other well-known manufacturer. I mean, you could argue the Chinese are quite good at aping other people's designs, aren't they? But in this case, they've actually amalgamated a few and sort of pulled on some heartstrings, and they've done it quite cleverly. I quite like the idea of this. It's got a range of about 260 miles as well, which is useful. That's real world mileage as far as I'm concerned. It's not your 100 miles just about, if you're lucky, of that Mazda thing that they've just launched, which is just pointless. And rapid charging as well, so you can get 80% of your charge in about 50 minutes. So again, real world stuff. It's starting to become much more the real thing. So I reckon we should have a sweepstake on when we're going to start seeing these things on the road. I'm reckoning I'm probably likely to see my first one, because I don't get out very much. I reckon probably early summer. I'd say early summer. So end of May, beginning of June.
I'm going to say August the 22nd.
Well, that's
just
very
to
precise.
pick a date.
Oddly specific.
I think not because I'm going to the launch of it or something, but living near trendy boho Brighton, I can imagine seeing those littering the streets of the coffee bars outside Hove.
Right, I'm going 18th of August then. Actually, no, I'll go. When did you go? 22nd. I'll go 21st. So I'll be close.
What's the date of the motor show? That's cheating.
18th to the 21st.
I reckon we'll see it in the wild about then anyway. I'm quite looking forward to it. I think that's a cool looking car.
I think so, yeah.
It deserves to succeed. I think it's they've done the right thing with it, and I think it looks like fun. If you're going to see cars on the road, you want something that makes you stop and look and go, "Oh, doesn't that look good?" Rather than, "Oh God, another Ferrari SUV."
If I ever did get round to, or somehow end up designing cars, you want the sort of car that you, as an 8 or 9-year-old, would have grabbed your dad by the arm and said, Dad, look at that. That's the appeal that you want for a car, isn't it? If you can do that, then that's a good bit of car design. If it doesn't do that, then I think it's somewhat let down.
Yep. No, absolutely right. Curb appeal.
You'd do that with a 940 Volvo, to be fair.
Well, you would, to be fair, yes.
So powering these things then, we've held the view that renewable energy is going to be the success story that will save our anxieties when it comes to having enough fuel to power up electric cars in terms of powering the grid. Do we still think that's going to be the case, or are we going to be firing up the coal-powered generators or gas-powered turbines and burning things to keep these cars running?
Well, I think we've had to, and having a look at looking around at gas and electricity prices, as my fixed rate deal is due up at the end of January, prices have gone absolutely insane. I'm not sure if it's Russian COVID or the Brexit in the Suez Canal or whatever that's caused all the issue, but all the manner of hell that beset us in 2021, prices have just gone nuts. But there's, if your home electricity and gas bill has shot up that much, is that going to put people off electric cars? If your home energy bill goes from, I don't know, 150 quid to 250 quid, are you going to rush down your nearest car showroom and think, oh, I know, I must get one of those newfangled electric cars just to add to my electricity bill? Okay, electricity for running a car is cheaper than petrol, but it'll put people off, I think.
Well, the time will come as well when the government realise that the margins they're making on the liquid fuel is dropping off at a rate of knots, and everyone's switching over to electric. Literally, they're going to have to start taxing you there, aren't they? And that time will come.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
That's already happening in terms of smart electric car chargers and the way they're wired in. And how they can account for the energy and report it back. When I put the charging point in the house when I moved in, the guy said, "Do you want one of these, and it does smart this, that, the other, and you can get an app and it will tell you this, that."
No.
And I thought, no, I don't want that. Can I just have it, sort of wired into a red wire and a black wire, and I just plug the car in and it works? Oh yeah, I can do one of them, and it's a lot cheaper. Good, yeah, I'll have one of those. Thank you very much. And it's just
a win-win for everyone.
A nicer way of doing it, I think, because it's going to happen that anything used as a road fuel is subject to VAT and duty and XYZ, just as chip oil on diesel cars was a thing back in the late 90s, early 2000s, wasn't it, for running your car on? And everybody wanted to start taxing it, and actually, if you just fill in the form and say that, yes, the 4 miles that you pulled me over in I was doing and I'd paid the tax on, etc. But it's there's going to be a black market in home EV charging points, I think, any minute now, or a lot of people saying, oh, well, I'll just wire it in myself. It's only 2 or 3 wires. How hard can it be?
Lots of suspicious wires coming out of lampposts, that sort of thing. It's it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this is a sign of the times, but I do have it on relatively good authority from someone in the know that coal-fired power stations have had to be kicked back into use, primarily because of the draw on the electricity grid being caused by the rapid uptick in use of electric cars, which rather misses the whole point of the exercise, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, when we were having all the surveys and works being done at work for the electric car charging points to go in, we ran a few numbers, and it turned out that the peak demand of our 2 electric charging points would be the same as the rest of the electricity that our building had ever used at its peak point. So that's all the ramps, all the air conditioning, the computers, absolutely everything for an entire car dealership full of 7 ramps and 40 people running around using everything and not paying the electricity bill. So you use the electricity with want and abandon. These 2 car charging points use the same as all of the rest of that put together. So our usage doubled. Like that. If you're charging 2 cars, our electricity usage is double what it ever has been. So, and that's just 1 car dealership in the corner of a relatively small town. So scale that up across and look at the number of superchargers you have at motorway services. It's insane the amount of electricity that needs to be produced.
Yep. But yet you've got all these people swanning around in their Teslas thinking they're saving the planet. Little do they know.
But I think a lot of this is because the uptake has been so much quicker than they expected. And before too long, technology, in terms of what we're getting for renewables, will catch up. It's a temporary problem. Ultimately, there should be enough power going into the grid to be able to charge the cars up. Whether that ends up being you get switched on at certain times during the evening, or on and off at certain times during the evening, or it's cheaper, like the electric mountain where there's a sudden demand, so it delivers all the power that it generates from sucking the water to the top of the mountain to power its own hydro generators, and then uses the cheap power at night time when no one's using it to pick it back up before it drops the water down to generate more power or whatever. I think we're going to be doing the same sort of thing where we end up charging cars when people don't need it.
That does make sense, and most electric cars, well, actually I think all electric cars have a schedule function built into them, so you can say, when I'm at home, only charge between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m, and that's fine because that's when I get the cheap electricity, but when I charge anywhere else, charge it straight away. So all that's been baked into electric cars from day one, really.
Yes, I think it's got some potential, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Watch this space.
Anyway, on the subject of running economically at night time, it's all getting a bit late, so I think we've all well and truly run out of energy for this evening, haven't we?
We really must go and recharge our own batteries. So on that note, from me, Mike, it's goodbye.
From me, Jim, it's goodbye. Take care.
And from me, Dave, take care. Speak to you next time.
UK Motor Talk, a First Take Media production.